So, Louis, tell me about the famine.
Well, the Great Famine of China was the result of Mao Zedong's great leap forward, fading agriculture. It happened between 1958 and 1962. And it's reported that over 30 million people died in that famine directly, and 20 million people failed to be born. And therefore, there's a gap in the Chinese demography of 50 million people within those 4 years of their history. People started eating bark, boiling grass, and eating anything just to survive. This poem is about a family of survivors. A father was determined to save his family.
Right.
But a child who didn't understand what was going on suffered. She was 5 years old during the famine.
All right.
And I was lucky enough to have this child as an adult, a student in my class at the university in Hong Kong.
Okay.
So this poem is about her and how her life and the life of her family turned out. Fortunately, it ends up, it's a lucky story, it's a happy story, it has a happy ending. The poem is divided into 3 cantos, 3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
First, describing the famine itself and its effect on people. And secondly, the effect of the famine on the child.
Mm-hmm.
And thirdly, the child as a grown-up person, now understanding what had happened to her family, yes, and forgiving her father. Trees, bared of leaves chewed raw, bark pulped, grass cut up and boiled, rotting trunks hollowed for grubs, the chips ground for broth, anthills flattened for insects, their sweet earth given the children to lick. We vie with vultures over corpses, with hawks for rats and snakes. Then is the vultures dying, of no use to the living, their blood already purulent. The hungry peasants break into armories, trample over food store fences to face armed party cadres, derail trains, rumor grains being shipped under escort by order of the great emperor to Peking. Is the famine of the Great Leap in the 3rd year of my life. Canto Two describes the events that happened to a child of 3 years, 4 years old. 3 times you sold me to feed my sister and 2 brothers, my mother and grandma. 3 times, whining, puppy-like, mindless of kidnappers, braving moon shadows, I sniffled my way back, turning the value of your useless girl child into a 3-headed nightmare. Desperate, you fled to Hong Kong as the loss of sustenance threatened 7 lives, there to find the ransom your creditors demanded. 2 years we waited, hungry years, Grandma and I, the last to flee the famine, when the snakeheads you hired had us, one by one, slither past party spies and border guards. Then comes the reconciliation when, as an adult, she now understands why her father did what she did.
Canto 3.
That's Canto 3.
Okay.
Now, at 80, I still ask, why me? As alone in dreams in the dark that still scares me, I'm running back, tears pouring rivulets. The morning comes, and I see us wives, husbands, children, together laughing, eating. Would all this have been without me? Then thinking of all those who aren't here, and I am, I swallow the day's tears and bow, awed by your plight, your sense of responsibility, to say, there's nothing to forgive, Father. So in a way, it's a happy ending.
She's looking back on this at the age of 60 now, in this final stanza.
She's at the age of 60, and at the age of 60, she has achieved something that very few people have achieved in life. She is a professor at a university in Europe and a director of a research institute.
And you first knew her when?
I first knew her when she became a student of mine, some 40 odd years ago.
In Hong Kong?
In Hong Kong. And she slowly, as her memories of the past started flowering. Perhaps I should put it this way. One day, after a tutorial, I took my class for a drink. And, then it turned out that she was having a drink for the first time. She had never drank alcohol.
And how old would she be at this point?
At this point, she was about 22.
22?
Yes. And so after a drink, one drink, of course, knocked her out. And I was driving them back to the university when she started crying.
So you were at some place out of town, or?
We were just outside the walls of the university. Yeah, so there was a hotel lounge there.
Right.
And she starts crying.
In the car?
In the car. And saying something like, my mother hates me, my father hates me. And then suddenly she opens the door of a moving car and throws herself out. Says, I'm going to kill myself.
Okay.
we were shocked. Of course, we stopped and went and picked her up, and
She was okay.
she was okay. Nothing happened because I was driving leisurely along a mountain road. Okay.
You're going up a mountain at this
Yes.
point, so
Yes.
you're going slowly.
So,
anyway.
yes. And then thereafter, each time she had a drink, it was the same song. My mother hates me, my father hates me. But certain memories started coming back.
So she
Okay.
hadn't remembered things from her past.
From her past for something like perhaps 15 years or so.
Okay.
She had suppressed
Uh-huh.
these images.
Right.
But eventually it turned out that she had actually been sold 3 times by her father to feed his family,
Sold
to an uncle, to a rich man.
to her rich uncle
To a rich uncle.
as
Perhaps,
a maidservant.
perhaps as a maid or just to look after her. The rich uncle could
Could afford to take her on.
to feed her.
Right.
But the father could not afford to feed her and
The rest
3 other children and a wife and a grandmother.
And she would have been at this stage what? How old?
She would have been about 4 years, 5 years.
4 or 5 years old.
Yes. So the first time she was sold, she remembers running away at night back to the house, to her home,
Right.
and sitting in the veranda of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And in the morning, the father coming out and finding her sitting there and getting angry. The father sold her again. He needed the money.
You needed the money.
She ran away again. She was sold a 3rd time. She ran away a 3rd time.
Okay.
So the father had debts now to pay.
Uh-huh. Because she hadn't fulfilled the contract.
Contract, but he had got the money.
Okay.
And the father therefore decided to escape, to smuggle himself into Hong Kong to find work.
So, from the daughter's point of view, what was going on at that time?
For the daughter of you, the daughter then thought, my father's been trying to get rid of me. He has tried 3 times. I've come back 3 times. Now he has run away from me.
So
She must hate me.
She doesn't
so
know where
much.
he is at this point.
She doesn't know. She just knows that her father has now disappeared.
And she thinks that he's gone away from her.
Right.
Because she's troublesome.
Then months later, her mother disappears
As well.
as well. And then she thinks, now my mother also hates me. She's run away from me.
Right.
Okay.
So these were the memories that was coming back of that time when she thought that her mother and father hated her
Hated her.
and left her.
And but of course there were 3 other brothers and sisters
And they were still together with her.
together. Yes.
And where were they all staying?
With the grandmother.
With the grandmother.
Yes, in the house. Then a year or so later, the grandmother got them at night and said, we are going somewhere. Mm-hmm. And they started walking at night. They walked at night only because the party functionaries would have shot them.
If they were trying to
be
leave.
running away. Yes.
Trying to leave the country at that point.
Right.
They would have been shot.
Yes. So they walked.
Even if they were children.
The children and the grandmother. Where are you going?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they would walk at night and rest in the daytime.
So this went on for several days.
This went on for several days, and at one point they got into a truck,
Right.
and where she slept.
Mm-hmm.
And one morning somebody comes to wake them up, to wake her up, saying, hey, your mother is here. Your mother is here.
Your mother is here.
When she woke up, it was her mother and her father,
Right.
but in a different country, in Hong Kong. Her father had made enough money to pay people smugglers.
Snakeheads, you call them.
Yes, snakeheads in the point, and to bring them into Hong Kong. So at the age of 6 now, she now begins to understand this. How much?
What
her
felt like a
father-
terrible betrayal on her father's part, that he sold her, that he left her. In fact, this was what he was doing in order to keep the family together and save.
And save her,
Save her.
yes,
And the
because
rest
it
of
was
the
a rich
children.
uncle, and he hoped that the rich uncle would be able to feed her,
Right.
and then he would be able to feed the rest of the family.
Right. So it's a sort of conflicting feelings of betrayal and loyalty
And
and trust and abandonment of trust, and that's all going on.
It's very complicated.
It is, isn't it?
Precisely.
And very human, very... I suppose there must be so many stories like that from China at that time.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
There are. And it's very impressive. And I think it's the Chinese experience of that period.
Yeah.
It what has created the, how shall I put it, the resilience
Uh-huh.
of the Chinese people.
So
Have come from that kind of background, and now to be the second richest country
in the world.
in the world.
And they would know that this was their background, that they would know that this was where they'd come from, in a sense.
The present generation knows that.
Right.
Yes, there's a whole generation during Mao Zedong's time when all this was hidden.
They wouldn't know.
They would not have known. But now they know it because these statistics about the 30 million people, 20 million people not being born are by Chinese demographers, not by outsiders.
Right, right. So that, in a sense, encapsulates the spirit of the Chinese people today. Stories like that are what China is built on.
It's built on, yes, you know.
Is that too much to say?
And it's and I think it's something now, you know, it's something that you can admire about the Chinese people.
Well,
Because they have-
tremendous resilience
Yes.
in the father, especially from the father's point
how
of view, and how
far
they handle this.
how far they have come.
Yes.
Because even this single family, looking at this single family, this child is a professor. Her younger sister is a medical doctor, became a medical doctor.
Right.
Her younger brother became a policeman.
Right.
And the whole story, you know, the story goes on. The four children were all very successful.
Right.
You know,
They
the other one was a banker. And you can't judge by just looking at them in the present time.
you can't
That
imagine
they went through, you know, can't imagine.
what they went through.
Yeah.
An amazing story, Louis.
You know, I would like actually this story to be better known
Yeah.
in order to understand
Yeah.
modern China.